planning meeting. In the absence of Councillor Marsh, I have asked Councillor Sweatman to sit in as Vice Chair. I am normally the Vice Chair and I've moved up and I will be chairing this meeting. To do that, then I will propose Councillor Sweatman for Vice Chair and I would like a seconder, please. Okay, Councillor Kennedy. Can you all give me a nod by affirmation that you're happy with that? Thank you very much. Okay. Second item on the agenda is to note substitutes. We have no substitutes today. And the third item is to receive apologies for absence. Take a seat. We have two apologies for absence, Councillor Marsh and Councillor Kennedy. Oh, sorry, not Kenny, sorry. Mark him absent. To receive declarations of interest from members in respect of any matter on the agenda. Do I see any? No. Okay. To agree by general affirmation the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 12th of June 2025. Are we agreed? Agreed. Thank you. To consider any items that the Chair agrees to take as urgent business, I have none. So let's move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is DM 250958, former Methodist Church Hall, 42 Cookfield Road, Hurstpere Point. And I would like to invite Hamish to introduce his report.
Thank you, Chairman. Before going through the application, I would like to draw members' attention to the agenda update sheet. Since the report to the committee was published, a consultation response from the Council's flood risk and drainage team has been received. It provides advice on the level of detail that they would expect to be submitted as part of a technical consent stage application, if this application for plan permission in principle were to be permitted. Also, additional details from the applicant have been received, which sets out the process the previous owners of the site undertook to market the site. Both these documents were published on the web page once they'd been received. A letter of representation objecting to the proposal has been sent to the members of this committee since the report was published. It has been saved to the planning file and is not considered to have raised any new issues that have not been addressed within the report in front of members. So the application before the committee is a permission in principle application for 6 dwellings at former Methodist Church Hall, 42 Cookfield Road, Hurstpere Point. The submitted details advise that the applicant intends to provide the units through converting the existing building. The application is before the committee as it has been called in by members. The site is located within the Hurstpere Point built-up area boundary and the Hurstpere Point conservation area. There are areas of risk of flooding from surface water within the site. The site can be seen here on the location plan, outlined in red. To the north, east and south of the site are residential properties, and the site is accessed through an existing access to the west of the site from Cookfield Road. It has a site area of some 0.1 hectares and consists of a church building, a number of single-storey buildings used incidentally to the main building, and a parking area. The site has previously been listed as an asset of community value, and it is currently in the process of being delisted, so should no longer be considered an asset of community value. The existing boundary treatment surrounding the site consists of a mixture of brick walls, closed fences and hedgerows of varied heights. The main building was previously used as a church building, and the submitted documents state that it has not been used as such since 2023. The existing main building is considered to be of a contemporary church design, which is characterised by bare brown brick walls, brown clay roof tiles, white UPVC window and door frames, and grey metal door frames. Here are some photos of the site. So the first two being the principal elevations as seen from Cookfield Road. This slide has images of the existing boundary treatment surrounding the site. And this slide, so the left of the photo is the southern boundary and the right photo is looking south along Cookfield Road. As members can see from the report before them, this application is for permission in principle, and as such, the assessment of the application should take into consideration issues relevant to in-principle matters. Other matters should be considered at a technical detail stage. The planning practice guidance advises us that these in principle matters relate to location, land use and amount of development. Matters such as impact on heritage assets, siting, design, scale, accessibility, impact on neighbouring occupiers' amenities, impact on trees, biodiversity, flood risk and drainage cannot be considered at this stage. If this application were to be permitted, then the applicants would need to submit a further application known as a technical details application. In permitting this application, the council are not required to permit the technical details application. That application would need to be assessed on its own merits, and if not considered acceptable in regard to the aforementioned matters, then it could be refused. The latter application would need to be determined by the committee rather than through delegated powers. It should also be noted that due to the nature of this application, limited details are required to be submitted as part of it. So several third-party letters of representation have been received in respect to the application. 3 object to the proposal for the reasons set out in the report. However, in summary, they raise issues regarding proposals' impact on the character of the area, impact on amenities of nearby residents, impact on parking, and on highway safety. They also raise concerns over overdevelopment of the site, and several letters also raise concern regarding the limited information submitted with the application. The parish council have recommended refusal of the application due to how the property was originally marketed and the application would result in the loss of a community facility. They also raise concerns regarding parking and highway safety. The council's land contamination officer, flood risk and drainage team, street name and numbering team, West Sussex County Council's highways team and West Sussex County Council's section 106 team have raised no objection to the proposal but provided information to the applicant regarding what may be required at a technical consent stage. Southern Water have advised there's insufficient information for them to comment, and the council's conservation officer has identified less than substantial harm due to the impact on the character and appearance of the conservation area. The council's corporate estates team have confirmed that the application to remove the asset of community value status of the building has been submitted, and the procedure is currently in the process of being completed by Land Registry. The issues are set out in the committee report, and as advised previously, only in principle matters can be taken into consideration in the determination of this application, specifically location, land use and amount of development. In terms of legal framework, the application should be determined in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. And as members are aware, due to the council not being able to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, this application is looked at in the context of the tilted balance within the NPPF. The site is located within the Hurstbeard Point built-up area boundary and is considered to be within a sustainable location. The location of the site is therefore considered to be acceptable. Whilst the loss of the community facility is regrettable, it is considered that it has been evidence that the use of the building as a community facility is no longer viable, and there are duplicate facilities in the locality which can accommodate the impact of the loss of the facility. The proposed land use for residential purposes is compatible with the surrounding area, and as such, the land use is considered to be acceptable. In terms of the amount of development, limited information is required to be submitted with the application, so the proposed layout is not known. However, there are several large buildings within Hurstbeard Point that have been converted into smaller units, and the local highways authority have raised no objection at this stage. As such, the quantum of units could potentially be accommodated on the site, and the amount of development is therefore considered acceptable. The site is located outside the 7-kilometre Ashdown Forest buffer zone. So the comments from the third parties are noted. However, given the limited scope that this application can be considered under, the majority of issues raised are not considered relevant to this application and will be assessed at a technical detail stage. The parish councils on the application are also noted. However, the sale of the site is a private matter and not something that should be taken into consideration in the determination of the application. No evidence has been provided to show that there is a shortfall in community facilities within Hurstbeard Point or the surrounding area, and the Conservation Officer's comments are noted regarding a less than substantial harm. However, it is considered the impact of heritage assets is another issue, is an issue to be dealt with at the technical details stage. The principle is considered acceptable for the reasons set out in the report, and the proposal would comply with policies DP4, DP6, DP21, DP25 and DP26 of the Mid-Sussex District Plan, and policy H1 of the Hurstbeard Point and Sayers Common Neighbourhood Plan. The provision of 6 dwellings of a limited but positive weight and an effective use of a brownfield site is considered to weigh positively in the tilted balance. For those reasons, the planning balance is considered to fall significantly in the favour of granting permission in principle, subject to the condition set out in Appendix A. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We have 2 speakers, 3 speakers on this one. Okay. Can I ask Councillor Julia Shorrocks to come to this? Councillor Shorrocks, you have 2 minutes, commencing when you press the button to light up your microphone, and I will let you know when you've got 30 seconds left.
Okay, I'm speaking on behalf of the Parish Council, and we would like the application refused for the following reasons. There is and continues to be additional need for large community spaces in Hurstpere Point. The property was not marketed at all prior to auction earlier this year. There was an interested purchaser, the Parish Council, on behalf of the community. The property was successfully registered by the Parish Council as an asset of community value due to the weight of evidence supporting this request. Evidence of these points does exist. Community groups using the church were evicted in December 23. They did not leave under their own volition. There is no equivalent side space within the parish. There are 2 similar spaces, but they are both at capacity. It's been a significant building within the community since 1910, and at the last review, the conservation area was extended to include it. After the church was listed as an asset of community value during the protected 6 months purchase period, the Parish Council was denied access to the building. As a public body spending public money, the Parish Council was not in a position to put in an offer without considerable due diligence. We are sure Mid Sussex District Council would agree that access to this inside, a survey and a structural report would be a minimum requirement. Once the church was listed at auction, the Parish Council surveyor and
30
structural
seconds.
engineer was able to gain access and to produce condition and recommended works reports. With these secured, the Parish Council made the church authorities an offer, which as it happens was not dissimilar to the eventual auction purchase price. However, the church did not accept the offer and they did not engage in any further dialogue. To summarise, there is not sufficient justification for the loss of the church as a community space. There are insufficient large community spaces within the parish. The building is very well valued by the community and is why the conservation area was extended to include it. The church did not undertake an extensive period of advertisement prior to auction. The church did not give interested parties the opportunity for access prior to the auction.
Can I ask you to close soon, please?
Or to purchase the asset of community value. The need for a large community space in the village still exists and is growing, and for these reasons, the permission in principle should be refused.
Thank you. I'd like to now call Hayley Richardson.
Good afternoon. My name is Hayley Richardson and I'm a Chartered Town Planner with over 10 years' experience. I'm here today speaking in support of the proposal on behalf of the applicant. The application has been called in by ward members and I'd like to use this time to address their concerns along with the comments from the Parish Council. It's important to remember that this is a PIP application and technical matters are reserved for a later application stage. The proposal involves converting a redundant building within the urban area to provide up to 6 new homes, something clearly supported by both local and national policy. The key issue is whether the loss of the community use is justified. The church has not been used since 2023, having closed due to dwindling congregation numbers and the high cost of maintaining a building of this scale and age. As an asset of community value, the building had to be marketed for sale to community groups before being sold on the open market. This was done, but no group successfully purchased the property. The building went to auction twice, giving all an opportunity to bid before selling. Mid Sussex Estate team has confirmed that the correct ACV process was followed and the church is no longer an ACV. The prolonged marketing process and lack of interest clearly showed the continued community use is unviable in today's economic climate. Importantly, there are other facilities with capacity in Hurstpere Point and the surrounding villages, and no objections from members of the public were received in relation to the loss of the community use. All these points assist in providing strong justification for the proposals to comply with policy DP25.
30 seconds.
Mid Sussex also does not currently have a 5-year housing land supply. This proposal would deliver 6 new homes on a brownfield site within the urban area to assist with this. This should carry significant weight in the planning balance. Members, whilst the community use being lost is regrettable, this building will otherwise remain empty and at the risk of deterioration. It's simply no longer viable to retain this building within a community use. The application has been thoroughly assessed by your officer and I fully support his conclusions, and I hope you agree with the recommendation to grant permission. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson. You have as long as you like, Rodney.
I'm Rodney Jackson, and I'm the Ward Councillor, District Ward Councillor for Hurstpere Point. I'm also a member of Hurstpere Point and Sayers Common Parish Council. This application is permission in principle, where location, land use and amount of development are only matters within the scope of determination of this application. My Ward Councillor colleague, Alison Bennett, also agrees with me on my views. I object to this application for the following reasons. One, on land use. Until 2023, this building was used as a church, a building of community use. As a result of falling congregations, it was decided by the Methodist Church to sell the building and use the funds elsewhere. All use ceased in 2023 and the doors were closed. As a significant number of organisations were wanting to use a large venue, and the village's large venues, the village centre and Court Bushes Community Hub, were well booked, the parish applied for the building to be registered as an asset of community value and were investigating acquiring it. This asset of community value was listed. I therefore disagree with the assertion in paragraph 1228 of the agenda papers that existing venues can accommodate the need. The Parish Council was not allowed access until the premises were put up for auction in 2025. At this point, a structural engineer was engaged to assess the structural integrity of the building and determining any necessary remedial work to bring the building to a safe and suitable for use. With this information, the Parish Council produced a viable business plan and submitted an offer for the premises. I therefore disagree with it as asserted in paragraph 1228 and paragraph 13.3 that the facility is not viable. The Parish Council produced a viable business plan. Unfortunately, the Parish Council offer was unsuccessful, falling short by a small margin. Considering the criteria in District Plan Policy DP25, evidence is therefore not provided that the use is no longer viable, and evidence is not provided that there are existing duplicate facilities that can accommodate future needs. Hence, the criteria for the loss of the community facility under DP25 are not met. I do not believe that the conclusion in paragraph 1229 that the loss of a community venue is acceptable, nor does 6 additional dwellings compensate for the loss of this community facility. My second reason is I do not believe the site is big enough to accommodate 6 dwellings of good design, and outside facilities such as car parking, storage of bins, etc. is not large enough. However, details of these will be in a further planning application. Conclusion, the criteria in DP25 for the loss of a venue of community value are not met, and this application should be rejected. I therefore ask the Planning Committee not to approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go into a discussion on this, can I just remind you, as I've been asked to, Members of the committee should keep their discussions relevant to the context of the planning application that is before them. The officer has very clearly pointed you to the 3 items which are under discussion here. Okay. Okay, has anybody got any comments to make, please? Nobody? Okay, we'll take this to the vote. Sorry, Councillor Cherry.
Yes, I'm surprised actually nobody else is wanting to make a comment on this. I have to admit that I have to support the findings of the parish council on this. I'm very, very unhappy about the fact that we're losing a very vital and important and much needed community hub, where we've got, for instance, I know of actually 5 local scout groups who are desperate for proper accommodation and are having to share inferior accommodation because there's not enough community buildings to support the scouts. And that is only one example. There are many other community groups who are desperate for proper accommodation. And the fact that we have recently lost a lot of community hubs in Haywards Heath and Burgess Hill, I'm really very unhappy about losing this one. I'm also concerned about the viability of building six flats or whatever they're going to be in the existing building. And the wording in the report states that the new dwellings would likely, and that's the key word, be provided through the conversion of the existing buildings on the site. Now what we've got, so it's a let-out clause basically. We've got no guarantees whatsoever that when they do submit the plans that there would be anything viable to be designed in the existing building. But they've got a get-out clause with the word likely. So definitely not happy about that either. So that's all I want to say at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Hammond.
First of all, could I ask a question on our additional sheet, item 6, when it says additional information received from agent relating to the marketing of the site? What was that additional information, please? Thank you.
Hamish.
So that was information on dates that the site was marketed, the auctioneer details, prices and that kind of thing that have been published on the website.
Can I ask you then, did it go to 2 auctions or just 1?
2 auctions.
2 auctions, okay. Thank you. Could I also have a query about page 9, 6.0, the comments made by the parish council seem to be quite disturbing about their interpretation of the process, about how this building came on to be sold. So I find that very disturbing about the validity of what they're saying. It does not seem to be quite straightforward, allowing the parish council an opportunity, particularly as it had been designated a parish of asset community, an asset of community value. So I'm very concerned about their comments about how this proceeded and how this was dealt with. So I don't feel that the district council are following the DP 25, which supports retaining community assets, and particularly in the village where there is a great need, as most of us have experienced with our local communities, about meeting places. Yeah, so I feel that this is contrary to our DP 25, and that the parish council perhaps did not have sufficient opportunity, particularly before it was deregistered. So, excuse me, can you tell me the space of time between it being registered? How long was it registered before it was deregistered? Could you inform me of that, please?
So I don't have the exact dates, but so the protection period is 6 months in terms of when it's listed as an ACV. And then since then, the applicant has applied to remove the ACV listing. And so from now, from a couple of weeks ago, it should not be considered a ACV anymore. It's currently with Land Registry to finish removing the listing from the title deeds.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Chairman, I think I would not support this on the basis it does not comply with our DP 25 allowing community assets to actually stay within a community if at all possible. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any more? John?
Thank you very much. If you'll permit me, Mr. Chairman, as I tend to do, went up to once a year, go up and see the relatives, etc., in my village in Leicestershire. And the church that I used to attend, which was virtually next door to, it was a little chapel, next door to where I was born and grew up, the church, the chapel that we used to attend to go to Sunday school and to have the annual choir fest, etc., all that sort of thing. And it is now flats. It shook me, it upset me, but unfortunately it's the state of the nation that these sort of things are happening. It is upsetting, very disturbing, and it's a problem where a community asset like this finishes up being converted into flats, houses, whatever you wish. But I think the key to it is that I think we've heard that this building wasn't used for anything since 2023. It hasn't been used, and I know that there are other places throughout the country in a sort of similar thing. It is upsetting. Believe you me, as a Christian, I find it very upsetting. But if it hasn't been used since 2023, and if indeed the church themselves decided they wanted to sell it, then who are we to actually step in and try to make them keep it as something else? If it is a genuine community asset that is vital to this community, that's a different story. But it doesn't sound, from the evidence we've heard, that that is indeed the case. It is upsetting, it's sad, but there are a number throughout this nation today where exactly the same sort of things happen, Mr. Chairman. That'll be the thoughts in my mind when we come to the vote on this. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councillor Hemel?
Yeah, please can I come back?
Yeah.
I am not approaching this from an emotional point of view, by the way. And in fact, we were told in the year 2023 that all the community users were evicted. So obviously it was not going to be used and therefore had not been used for several years. That's what we were informed of. And it also, according to the parish council observations, when they actually wanted to survey it, there was restricted access to this building. And we've also been told that that there was a business plan brought forward. So I would have thought the local people, the parish council, had endeavored to keep this. But if the users had been evicted in 2023, it obviously was not being used because they were evicted. So I still assert, I do not believe that the district council are adhering to their policy DP 25 to support community buildings. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Swain?
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I partly agree with Councillor de Bell over there. Just referring to page 17 on 1225, I think you've got to bear in mind that's since 23 or before that, there was a dwindling congregation. So it wasn't viable to keep that building with the maintenance and that, et cetera, et cetera. So consequently, it was put on the market. The town council or the parish council were unsuccessful in that bidding. And obviously, consequently, as we heard from the case officer, the asset and community value has been deregistered, and that's in the process of the land registry at the moment. What we're looking at here today, and just remind members, is this permission in principle. We're only looking to make a decision on the location, the land use, and the amount of development it can take. So that's what we got to decide on today. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, three issues. Location, I don't think there's a problem with location for residential development here in principle. On land use, I'd like to have a little bit more information if possible, please, Hamish, because the points that have been made by Councillor Jackson and I think it's Councillor Shorrocks from the Parish Council relate to this question about existing venues and the capacity of the existing venues to accommodate a community facility. Now, in 2028, it says that the loss of the community facility is regrettable, but there is other facilities available. Can you just expand a bit on that for us? Because I think that's a pretty important point that goes to the crux of all this. And my final point on the third issue about the extent of the development, we're talking about potentially 6 dwellings, either by converting the existing building or adding to it or building new units altogether. I think 6 may be a bit much for that, but that's my observation on that. But I'd particularly be interested in your answer to the point on 1228.
Yep, please.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So in terms of existing additional facilities within Hurstbeer Point, so a list was submitted of community facilities in the area with the application. 2 other facilities were identified in Hurstbeer Point, and then a number there was, I think it was 12 overall in neighbouring areas. In terms of this site, so congregation information was provided with the application. I believe it was in 2022, the congregation was at 8 people, and then in 2023, it went down to 6 people at this site. And then in terms of your third point, yes, so there isn't specific guidance, national guidance in relation to PIP applications of the quantum of units permitted at sites within, like, for PIP applications. The details will be provided at a technical details stage, which would be before this committee. So if you were unhappy with the number of units provided and how they were provided, it is in your gift to refuse that application on material planning reasons. And it is up to 6 units. So the technical consent stage application doesn't have to provide 6, it could provide up to 6. Hopefully that answers your questions.
Well, if I may, Chair, the supplementary. We've heard that community groups who were using the facility in 2023 were excluded or thrown out, basically. Do we know about the extent of that use? How many groups were using it, how often, and how many people were attending the meetings?
Yes, so we don't, that information hasn't been submitted with the application, and we don't have that information as a district council.
Okay, but you said that there were 2 other facilities within Hurst and 12 other facilities in the vicinity of Hurst. How far does that vicinity extend?
So yeah, it's the neighbouring settlements, so Hassocks, Burgess Hill.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with it, Wasn't there a circle, a ring, or I don't know, 5 miles or whatever?
No, so a list of sites was provided. It wasn't done kind of on a map. Yeah.
All right, but 2 within Hurstby Point.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Can I ask Joan Fisher to come back on DP25, please?
Thank you, Chairman. So DP25 for members is relating to community facilities and local services. In relation to when there is a loss of a community facility, it does state in the policy that evidence needs to be provided to ensure that it demonstrates the use is no longer viable, or there is an existing duplicate facility in the locality which can accommodate the impact of the loss of the facility, or that there is a replacement facility will be provided in the locality. So the first 2 points, that is no longer viable, or there is an existing duplicate facility in the locality, has been met. The agent has provided that sufficient evidence. And whilst there have been submissions saying that there aren't sufficient alternatives, there is no list to the contrary setting out. And so officers are satisfied that it does meet the test of DP25, especially because it does say locality. It doesn't set a certain distance to that area.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
No other questions.
No other questions? Okay, we'll proceed to the vote, but before we do, can I just remind you of the voting requirements? If you're going to support the motion, it's a green button. If you're not going to support the motion, it's a red button. If you wish to abstain, it's an amber button. So can we please go to the vote? Yeah.
That we're actually saying that they can actually do the
The recommendation is that this application, which is for accommodation in terms of development on a site where the Methodist Church is given a provisional permission in principle. So please. So we have 6 votes in favour, 2 votes against and 2 abstentions. So this motion is carried. Okay, can we now move on to DM 25/1248, 8 New Stone Cottages, East Street, Turners Hill, which is for a rear and side extension. If the architect is happy to do so, can we take both of these items together? It's the same discussion. Les? Happy?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
If you're happy for us to do so, we'd like to take DM 25/1248 and 9 together. Okay? Thank you. So can I please ask Caroline Gris to present her case?
Thank you, Chairman. So the applications before you seek planning permission and listed building consent under 2 separate applications for a garage and a rear side extension, which would provide a cloakroom and bedroom to 8 New Stone Cottages, East Street in Turners Hill. The application relates to 8 New Stone Cottages, which is a Grade 2 listed building that is situated within the built-up area of Turners Hill, as well as the Turners Hill Conservation Area. It is one of 5 pairs of similar properties that form a group to the north of East Street. These cottages are of a modest scale and design and form part of a planned layout from 1919. They are arranged in pairs and are regularly spaced around a central front garden area, creating a formal symmetrical composition, which is illustrated in part on the slide here. Neighbouring properties are located to the east and west of the site, here, and to the north, slightly off the drawing, is Noah's Court, The highway is to the south of the site. Number 8 itself is a semi-detached 2-storey dwelling. The property also benefits from a conservatory extension to the rear, which has a timber frame and a pitched roof. Planning permission has also been previously granted for a detached garage at this property, but it has not been constructed. There have been 2 schemes for a single-storey side extension that have been previously submitted for consideration and have been withdrawn. This slide shows the first proposal, where the extension is to be sited in a forward position, including a partially pitched roof here, and it was set away from the shared boundary here. This slide shows the second submission, which was also withdrawn. The proposal repositioned the extension to the rear so it connected to the existing conservatory and changed the footprint so it extended to the side boundary. It also included a flat roof design. The proposal also included a detached pitched roof garage, which is shown here. Both of these applications were withdrawn after concerns were raised relating to the principle of having a side extension, its scale, including in relation to the existing conservatory, as well as the form and design of the addition. This slide shows the floor plans that are currently under consideration. It again shows the inclusion of a detached garage situated here. Detached garages have been granted planning permission to other properties at New Stone Cottages, including the application property. Design issues raised under the previous application have been addressed, and it is considered that this aspect of the proposal would be acceptable. In terms of the side extension to the rear, it remains in the same position as the previously withdrawn scheme, extends again to the side boundary, and would be of the same depth. Concern therefore remains about the scale of this extension. As visible on the floor plan, the original house, which is this part of the property here, is of a modest scale, which is an important characteristic of the listed building. Principle DG 49 of the design guide states that extension should be designed to allow the original building to remain the dominant element of the property, whether it has one or several additions. The property has previously benefited from a conservatory extension to the rear here, which is deeper than the existing kitchen. It's considered that the further addition to the side together would create an overbearing impact in terms of the scale and bulk to the original modest cottage. There is also concern that the extensions would appear visually prominent, particularly when viewed together. Whilst the proposed garage is acknowledged, there is no guarantee that it would be built and no planning mechanism to secure it. This slide shows the proposed elevations, and the proposed design remains essentially the same as the previously withdrawn scheme. The side extension has retained a solid form and a flat roof design. It remains the view that this would not appear sympathetic to the original building. The original building has a hipped roof, and the conservatory also is a lightweight building, so a lightweight addition that has a hipped roof. And it is considered that they would appear awkward and jarring together and create a juxtaposition. It is noted that some changes have been made from the previous scheme to the rear elevation in relation to the materials and to include the French doors to the rear. These changes, however, would not be considered sufficient to overcome the concerns in terms of the bulk and form of the extension. There are also concerns surrounding the changes to the materials and the design of the proposed fenestration. Consideration also needs to be given to the wider impacts of the proposal. The application property forms one of a group of listed buildings which are in a formal and symmetrical arrangement. The symmetry and consistency of these properties is an important contribution to this group of listed buildings and to each individual building. Principle DG 50 of the design guide also establishes the importance of the gaps between dwellings and the positive contribution they can make to the character of the street scene. It is noted that extensions have been undertaken to neighbouring properties. However, none of these sit the full width of the plot and have been designed so that they appear subordinate to the original building. As such, the majority are lightweight glazed additions. The proposed extensions are therefore considered to appear out of place and would detract from the consistency of this group of buildings. And the consistency is considered to be an important contributor to their special interest and the character and appearance of the conservation area. From a design perspective, the proposed side extension extending across to the side boundary of the site be considered to disrupt the current arrangement of the street scene and would create a discordant feature particularly as the garage to the front may not be constructed. The following slides show the most recent examples of extensions to New Stone Cottages. This is number 2 New Stone Cottages. The property has an original attached workshop rear wing to the rear, which is this, which is what I'm showing with the mouse here. This image on the left shows a scheme that was granted permission for an infill extension in 2018, which was this area in blue. It's considered to be a lightweight addition that allowed clear views to the retained rear wall of the house. This was not built, and the image on the right here shows that planning permission was granted for a smaller extension. Number 4 New Stone Cottages is on this slide, and the extension that was granted here, which is of a smaller scale. It does not extend the full width of the plots or the rear of elevation of the house, as would occur at number 8, and is of a more lightweight design. And at number 9 New Stone Cottages, permission has been granted for a detached garage and a single-storey rear extension. This is a single-storey rear extension. Again, it is to be positioned to the side of an existing workshop wing, and like number 2, it shows a lightweight glazed extension. Again, these are the proposed plans. You can see that the development would result in extensions that would span across the rear of the property and the plot, and the proposed addition will be of a more solid form, shown here, compared to those that have been recently granted permission. For reference, these are photographs of the street scene for context. This shows 8 New Stone Cottages in the middle and its neighbours to either side. You can see the character and the size of the dwellings, as well as the spacing between the properties. This slide shows photos looking east and west along the group of New Stone Cottages. You can see the arrangement of the houses that has been referred to, the pairs of dwellings that are regularly spaced around a central front garden area, which forms a formal symmetrical composition. This slide shows the existing conservatory in relation to the existing building, and which is shown here in this picture and here. And you can see that the extension would infill this section along here. It is therefore concluded that the scale, form and detailing of the proposed rear and side extension would result in an unsympathetic addition to the dwelling that, with the existing conservatory, would result in an overbearing impact to the host dwelling. As such, there would be a harmful impact to the special interest of the listed building, to the character and appearance of the conservation area, and in design terms. The harm identified to the heritage assets has been identified as less than substantial. The National Planning Policy Framework sets out that great weight needs to be given to the heritage assets conservation, irrespective of the level of harm identified. Where less than substantial harm is identified, the NPPF sets out that the harm must be weighed against the public benefits of the development. The National Planning Practice Guidance states that a public benefit should not just be a private benefit. The property remains in its original use as a dwelling, and it is not considered to be currently at risk. Whilst the applicant's situation is acknowledged and the proposed extension would enhance the living accommodation within the building, this is a private benefit and does not fall to be considered in the balance. Furthermore, the continued viable use of the building as a residential dwelling is not dependent on the proposal, as the building has an ongoing residential use that would not cease in its absence. As no public benefits have been identified that would outweigh the harm identified in heritage terms, the proposal would fail the assessment within the NPPF and would not therefore comply with policies DP26, DP34 and DP35 of the Mid-Sussex District Plan, policy THP7 of the Turners Hill Neighbourhood Plan, and principles DG49, DG50 of the Design Guide, as well as the requirements of the NPPF. The recommendation before you is therefore for refusal, the full reason set out in Appendix A. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. So, we have 2 speakers. Do you wish to speak, Mr. Lars? Would you please come to the chair? I'm allowing you to speak, although we haven't had any text from you. Okay?
No.
Under normal circumstances, we would require text, but we understand that you were on holiday as of yesterday.
Well, not only that, but the committee may not know that on the 2nd of July, parish council meeting, which I was attend, I was handed at 8 o'clock this notice saying this meeting was being held on the 10th. Bearing in mind, I'm on holiday, I've flown back today, I'll go back to
Okay.
my
Yep, please take a seat unless you have 2 minutes, starting from when you push the button to turn your microphone on.
with my press.
Left-hand side.
That one?
Yep, a red light, come on.
Thank
Okay,
you.
you have 2 minutes from now.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, all committee members. I'm Barry Lyles. I live at number 8 Newstone Cottages. I'm very proud of this house. I've been there for a good number of years now. And you will know from the previous methods mentioned by the lady that there was an application and approved for a garage, which are required. Unfortunately, my health has deteriorated rapidly over the last few years. I now have stage 2 cancer, prostate cancer, and I also have had an open heart surgery to have a mitral valve repaired, and I now need a downstairs bedroom and toilet. Upstairs, these houses only have 1.5 bedrooms. The second bedroom is a box, and that's all it is. There is no room anywhere in that house to put a downstairs toilet, and it's been confirmed by the council. Following meetings with my good friend Les, we've come up with drawings, we've been backwards and forwards to the council, and the conservation officer wants us to have a downstairs room, conservatory room extension, with a glazed panel leading out onto the garden. I don't want this. This is what's been approved at number 4 and number 9, but it doesn't suit me because they're kitchen and dining room extensions. This is a bedroom. All I want is a pair of doors leading out into my lovely garden. And one of the main issues I have is our gardens, if you've never been there, are over 50, 60 foot long. I have 50 foot to walk to the first set of steps. I have 5 steps up to the patio, 2 steps up to the raised area, 2 steps up into my conservatory, 2 steps to the kitchen, that's 9, 15 steps up the first flight of stairs to a landing, and then 2 stairs up to the toilet, making 26 steps. If you're at the bottom of the garden, it's impossible. I wet myself.
Mr.
This
Lyles,
is totally
can you-
unreasonable.
Can you finish quite succinctly, please? Quickly?
Okay, I apologise. It's mentioned in the lady's report about the public benefits at home. Well, my public benefits are very important. I only want the garage now to obscure the extension at the back, but it's absolutely necessary. Number 7 next door has a wholly UPVC small extension.
I need to stop you now, please, Mr. Lyles. I've given you quite an excess on your 2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much.
Do I press this again?
No, you can leave it. Just leave it.
Thank you.
I'd like to call Les Humphreys, please, to speak for. Against, I mean.
I'm Les Humphrey, agent and designer for this application. You've heard from Mr. Lyles of his and his wife's medical condition that require ground floor toilet facilities, and the scheme as designed incorporates a further room to be used as a bedroom to future-proof the accommodation that in the fullness of time, for whatever reason, the stairs become an issue and they can still remain at the property with the ground floor bedroom. The Conservation Officer makes an issue of the conservatory plus the extension being overbearing and out of character with the host dwelling. The flat roof and rendered panels of the extension are in fact designed not to detract from the listed building and are subservient to the original property. The existing traditional constructed conservatory was there when the applicants purchased the property, and with a brick plinth, timber frame windows and rafters, it's a fine example and very much in keeping with the host property, rather than dark-coloured metal-framed glass boxes provided on the neighbouring property at number 9, which in my opinion is very much out of character. The approved scheme at 9 Newstone Cottages incorporates a tandem-style garage, the length of which stretches back almost as far as the proposed extension at number 8. With the proposed new garages at numbers 8 and 9, both properties having sandstone quoins and snecked-in fill panels to the front elevation, together with side gates and fences taken across the host dwelling, will complement the street scene and retain the similarity of the group of cottages. Comments are also made about the specification of rendered panels being out of character. However, number 4, alterations specify rendered and painted walls incorporating stone quoins at the corner of the extension, similar to what has been specified on this project.
Les, can
Should
I
there
ask
not
you
be
to finish up quickly,
uniformity?
please?
Should there not be uniformity from application to application? What's good for wall finishes 4 should also be applicable to number 8. Over the 50 plus years I've been designing and submitting planning applications, there will always be instances where I cannot agree with officers' considerations, and in this case, on this application, unfortunately, officers sometimes stick rigidly to their first opinion and are not prepared to
Can
compromise.
I ask you to stop there, Les? I've been very generous with the time. Okay, thank you. Okay, can I open this to you for discussion? Councillor Zabel.
It's very concerned about the gentleman who lives in the property and finds it no longer suits his requirements. It might interest you, Mr. Chairman. When I first moved down here, I was looking around to buy a property, and I do know that these properties are absolutely superb on this particular part of the road. They are historic properties. I can't remember exactly when they were built, but they are a long time ago. And because of that, I actually couldn't afford one. They are very, very expensive properties. My consideration would be what the officers have said, that these properties, because of the nature of them, they need protecting, because they are historic properties and they are a very important part of the town. And I couldn't afford one, but I would say that sometimes in a situation like this, and I really feel for the gentleman who was telling us about where he lives, sometimes, unfortunately, no matter how long you've lived there, sometimes the answer is to move somewhere else. But hopefully in the town, but do you know what I mean? That's his choice, but unfortunately with these properties, because of the nature of them, because they are listed buildings basically, I can't remember exactly when they were made, but it was a long, long time ago, and we're all likely to fall foul of this situation where we can't actually do what we want with the property because of the nature of it. So I do very much sympathise, but I think that were it me, I would consider moving somewhere else, in the town, hopefully. Bless you.
Councillor Hemwood.
Well, I would support the planning officer's recommendation, but I do have a question. The planning officer has quoted that this application would be against DP 34, DP 35, DG 11, DG 50, DG 49. So I would like to know 12.2, when the conservation officer has identified that this harm would be less than substantial, what has to happen to make something more than substantial? We often have that term, so often. So I'm just really wanting to know, it's against all these, and yet it's still classified as less than substantial. Please.
Thank you, Chairman. So the term under 215 is less than substantial, and that is the test. It's either there is harm or there is no harm, and so it's graded as less than substantial. They sometimes do certain different gradings, but the technical term in the NPPF is less than substantial. So there would be harm, and that is just a term. Where there is harm, it has to be less than substantial, so not harmful.
So is it, I don't quite understand. Can it be ever classified as harmful, just harmful? Because this less than substantial, we often hear it, and doesn't provide us with much strength to actually say anything. I'm sorry, but
If it is considered harmful, it is less than substantial harm, and the test still applies. Like I said, it has to be either harm or no harm, and they grade it, the government grade it as less than substantial harm, and you weigh it against the benefits.
I will remain confused, but thank you for trying.
Are there any other people who wish to speak? Does the ward councillor have any words he'd like to say?
He's not a ward councillor.
You are the parish councillor.
Parish councillor.
Yeah, would the parish councillor like to have a word?
So,
Yep,
jump in.
please do.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, I am not I'm not a ward councillor, but I am a parish councillor for Turners Hill Parish Council, and I have seen this application come forward in its various forms, and the parish council has felt very strongly that it was important for this to come in and to be looked at. I think we accept that the assessment of less than substantial harm. But I think that there is still the opportunity to look at this in terms of the public benefit, and that's simply reflecting the view of the parish council. It's a shame, perhaps, that Councillor Marsh, who is a parish councillor, is not here today in order, perhaps, to sort of say more on that. But that was the principle in terms of asking you, ladies and gentlemen, to have a look at this, just in the context that what's been brought forward has been revised through several iterations in order to try and achieve a position that we can all agree on, that this should go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask a couple of questions about the visual appearance from the front of the property. And I may have misunderstood slightly during the presentation, but it's right that planning permission has been granted for a garage at the front, but that garage has not been constructed. And that the proposal that is being requested today is for an extension at the back of the property and behind where the garage would be if it were built. Okay. Now, if the garage had been built, it's right that from the front elevation you wouldn't be able to see the proposed rear extension. Is that right?
It's shown in, oops.
Yeah.
Where the mouse is.
That's right,
This
yes.
shows the arrangement with the garage here. Just to clarify, the property isn't just within the conservation area, it's also a listed building as well. Oops,
yeah.
Sorry. So the matters that have been raised in terms of the listed building, the visual impact from the street scene isn't the only factor in assessing the impact to a listed building. Mm-hmm. There is also the direct impact to the heritage asset itself, which also relates to the concerns regarding the scale of the addition, as well as its form and design that have been previously highlighted.
Okay, then my question probably would be is, if the garage had been constructed and we were listening to the application on the basis that the garage was there, would you still be recommending refusal?
Yes,
Okay.
we would.
All right. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Yeah. Graham?
It's a difficult one because I believe buildings should be allowed to evolve. As time goes by, you look at old buildings around, they've all evolved, they've all had extra bits added to them as time's gone by. And I personally just believe that buildings should be allowed to evolve and be more use made of them. So I would be against this, in all honesty. I'd just like to make a comment of my own, if I may.
I went and had a look at this row of buildings, and from the front they are spectacular. From the rear, they are not spectacular because there are too many additions. And I think it looks to me, from my old professional point of view, that all the additions along the back have actually taken away the character of the houses, and that character of the houses no longer exists. I therefore don't see why this extension on the back of number 8 should be any different. I think the character's already gone. That's my own view. Okay, Councillor Sweatman.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I do feel for the applicant with your unfortunate conditions and understand the reasons why you request this extension. Personally, if it wasn't a listed building, it would probably get permission. I think that what we have to look at here is the actual planning policies, and we've had reports from the officers. And in planning, you know, you have to be consistent. You can't just choose, you know, swap around just to suit each application. You've got to be fairly consistent. And the fact that it is listed building, I think one of the reasons why it was refused was the type of materials being used, and the fact that it was deemed to be overbearing to the host dwelling, which is, I believe, quite narrow. Not sure whether if there had been a passageway in between, perhaps the officer could answer that question, whether that would be okay with to go forward with or not. I don't know. I don't think Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, are there any, do you want to respond to that?
I can.
You can, okay.
So we can only consider what is in front of us. We can't discuss what potentially could or could not be acceptable, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any more? Anybody else wants to comment? We then need to take this to the vote.
So Chairman, we are voting to refuse this.
Yes, we are.
So okay, thank
Green is a refusal.
Thank you.
So we have 8 votes for, 1 against and 1 abstention. So the motion is carried. It's refused. Thank you. Other matters, I have none. Questions pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10.2, I have none, and therefore I close the meeting at 5:08. Thank you.
That's an easy one, let's touch.